out of ammo?
The Evil Within is a third-person action/horror game developed by a company called Tango Gameworks. This review will be based on the base game alone and not on any of the DLC. And the base game took me around 14 hours to complete on the survival difficulty. So, what is Evil Within? Well, the game seems to have some ambition to be a horror game, but with a couple of exceptions, it plays like an action game in a horror setting. The game does have some focus on exploration and ammo conservation, so you could call it a survival horror game, perhaps. But if you choose to do that, then you should know that it is a very action-heavy survival horror game. Okay, so how does the game look? Well, at launch, the developers were kind enough to include console features like letterboxing and frame rate caps, but thankfully they have patched the game and you can turn this off. And aside from some frame rate drops here and there, I could run the game without letterboxing at 60 FPS without any problems on my computer. Everything is not perfect though. While playing the game, it became very noticeable that something was odd. It didn't look like the game was running at 60 FPS, despite the fact that it was running at 60 FPS. And I thought that it was really odd, and I was wondering if I was imagining it. But I asked a friend, and he looked, and he said the same thing. And I googled it, and I believe that it is the animations that are rendered at 30 FPS. So they do look kind of out of place. I did get used to it quite fast, and it didn't bother me all that much. But at first, it was definitely noticeable. Another thing that is not really a big deal, but more odd, is the film grain effect. Now you can turn this off, which I, of course, did. So it's not like it's a big deal, but I cannot understand why developers put these shit filters on the screen. And I kind of feel bad for people not realizing that you could turn this off. But overall, the game looks alright. It won't blow anyone away, but it looks gory and it looks dark and gritty. And I believe that art style fits the game and the visuals fits the game style, so to say. And there is a nice variety in locations that you get to run around in, and I could appreciate that. Now, the story of the game is kind of a mess. It feels like they had a bunch of horror-themed ideas that they wanted to make, and they just came up with a plot that allowed them to mash all of these ideas together into something. Now, perhaps the DLC will tie up some plot points, but I can't see them changing the fact that the game feels like a collection of horror-themed levels. But with that said, the game do have this whole, dreamlike, what is real, what is not vibe going for it. And I absolutely do not hate that. I just wish that if they are going to go down this route, whatever, then they should, go all the way. Because now they are stuck in this middle land where they are kind of trying to be coherent, but at the same time they are completely random. So I don't think that it comes together into something all that interesting or atmospheric. But this is a very gameplay focused game, and I can't see anyone playing this game because of the story. So, how is the gameplay? Well, the core of the gameplay is quite fun. You have very little ammo, and your melee attacks kind of suck. And you are dropped into these cool-looking levels to explore. And the game has a basic stealth system, which works all right, I guess. So you get to sneak around these levels, and you want to find ammo and get a jump on enemies, which you often can one-hit if you get behind them without them noticing. And the core of this is very fun. It's quite atmospheric, even though the stealth system is very basic. The lack of ammo also helps to make the game more tense and atmospheric. It makes you want to go for those clean headshots, and it can be very fun to do that when you have a limited amount of bullets left and a monster come at you, juggling their heads back and forth and so on. It can be very fun. There are some nice-looking monsters in the game, but the monster variety could be a bit better, and you do encounter some monsters where they perhaps do not belong. But overall, the core gameplay is fun, even though it feels a bit stretched out, and I don't think that it truly can carry the game's length, especially not since the story does not help to carry the game's length. But the gameplay do have some nonsense in it. My biggest problem is the checkpoints. Stealth and item collecting does not mix well with checkpoints, in my opinion. And it certainly doesn't help that the game have some instant death traps in it. I cannot understand why they would make this design decision. It makes no sense to me. Another thing that annoyed me is that some enemies have instant death animations that can trigger when they are near you. And it feels a bit arbitrary because sometimes you can run past them and nothing happens, and sometimes their death animations trigger, and it feels a bit arbitrary. And again, this comes back to the checkpoints, which make this worse once again. Something else that could be improved is the movement. This would not be a problem if you would only be fighting against the normal enemies. But at times in the game, you will be fighting fast-moving enemies and bosses and so on in very tight corridors. And then it becomes a problem that you are very clunky in this game. You move clunky and you have no dodge options or anything like that. And it can be a bit annoying. Another problem that I have is at the end of the game, especially, the game becomes too combat heavy, in my opinion. They throw a ton of enemies at you with no stealth possibilities. And as I mentioned before, your melee sucks ass, so it's not even worth trying. And it can become real annoying if you get to an encounter and you have a very limited amount of ammo on you just then, and then you are forced to fight a ton of enemies. Some of them can even be immune to headshots and stuff like that, and they can stand in a like a corner with a gun, and they are immune against headshots in front of them, and it can just become annoying. And there are also some areas where enemies will spawn, indefinitely. So it's no point wasting your ammo, but you cannot know that. And there are also some monsters which you cannot kill, but you can still waste your ammo against them. And I also find those encounters to be really weird because you are supposed to be conserving your ammo and so on. But then the enemies are spawning indefinitely. It makes no sense. And if you would like cheese through the game, then when you would realize this, then you would of course let yourself be killed and just stop wasting your ammo. But that is kind of playing it the wrong way, perhaps. But yeah, I guess that this is my opinion on the game. I did enjoy the game. It's certainly no perfect game, and it has a lot of nonsense in it. But overall, I think that the core gameplay is fun. But I don't I did not find it fun enough to perhaps justify the game's length. But it's fun, and I would recommend it for people with an interest in what do you say slasher films like Brain Dead or Evil Dead. I guess that would be movies that I would compare it to. It's horror themed, but I would not call it horror. And I'm a scary cat, so it's not like I'm trying to pretend to be what do you say more courageous than I am. But I just did not find this game scary at all. Well, if you have gotten this far, then thank you for watching, and bye bye bye.